kitchen fire gets taken care of right away, no matter what, right? Everybody's focused on putting out that kitchen fire. Right away, you don't have to give direction. You don't have to hold people accountable. Everybody goes and gets, whatever they need to put out the fire. A burnout light bulb, they don't necessarily do that, or a cracked window, or, the grout is dirty in between the tiles and we haven't cleaned it. And those all seem like trivial things. But I have found that if you manage the details, if you manage the little things, the big things kind of take care of themselves.
Need a partner who sees the big picture? Forza Management. We're not just property managers, we're strategic partners. Navigating the complex world of commercial real estate can be daunting. That's where Forza Management comes in. Forza Management provides services in the mountain and desert states and covers all types of asset classes, including retail, industrial, and office. Our team of experts delivers exceptional property management services, namely property maintenance, lease administration, and annual CAM reconciliations. When looking at your next property, check out our website at forzacommercial.com. Forza Management, maximizing your investment and minimizing your stress.
Welcome back to the Dirt Dog Pod. Today we have a wonderful guest, our first Chief Operating Officer. We have David Roberts, COO with Hangry Joe's Chicken and Wings. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you're joining us from HQ today, is that right?
That's correct. I'm in our headquarters office in Tyson's Corner today.
Wonderful. And is the first Hangry Joe's, was it in Tyson's Corner or somewhere close there?
So the first Hangry Joe's was actually in Ashland, Virginia. That was, completely unknown at that point. And our founders kind of built it themselves, opened it with no marketing, no word on the street, nothing. And it was just an explosive success right away. And the growth kind of came from there. It's very organic. We've never once advertised to sell a franchise, not one time, not one ad. So everything's very grassroots. This is our biggest market in the DMV area here, partially because of the community connections that the owners, the founders had here, and partially just because it's a brush fire. It caught fire and it just spread out over Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland.
How long ago was that? When did they open the first location?
So the first location was, I believe, in 2020, but at the beginning of 22, we only had 13 restaurants. So all of our growth has happened really in the last 2 years. And, there's a target for, how big we want to grow. At this point, we're just kind of trying to keep up. We have so many inquiries and so many requests. We've got about, I want to say 46 stores under construction as we speak across the country. And we're moving into some international territories as well. So we have 2 in Dubai, 1 in Japan, 1 in Korea. And then we're exploring India and the rest of the GCC right now.
How many stores are open today?
About 110.
110. And you did how many last year? Because you guys won an award last year, right?
We did. Yep. So it was about 60 last year, I believe. I don't have the number right in front of me, but I think that's what it was.
And that puts you at the fastest growing franchise concept?
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, kudos to the team on that, you and the team. And then this year, it's pacing for about the same kind of growth?
Hopefully more. My goal is my personal goal is to open 100 stores this year. Yeah. We're probably at, close to 20 at this point, after a full quarter plus a little bit. But it's rapidly growing. Like I said, the 46 that are under construction right now will certainly open this year. And what it comes down to really is can we expedite the building process? So to build one is, probably at best 90 days, 75 to 90 days. But there's permitting involved and there's, contractor involvement who, can't predict human behavior, that kind of thing. So I would be surprised if we don't have at least 200 by the end of this year.
It's pretty wild when you consider, that's the end of 25. And you said at the start of 22, you had 13.
That's right. Yep.
Tremendous growth. Unreal. What's it like being at a concept and being, you're the maestro of the orchestra here, right? From the operational side. What is it like to run this thing on the operational side, growing at that kind of pace?
I would say I call it controlled chaos. There's so many moving pieces. Everybody's running 100 miles an hour in every direction. And to bring it in and kind of bring everybody back to center on a regular basis is really my job. And, it's herding cats. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase or not, but it's a difficult process. But I'm a process and structure guy. So that's what I've done my whole career. And, building structure into the organization while we're growing this fast is challenging. But, luckily, everybody in the organization is amenable to it, excited about it, about having, some kind of, a structure and a more defined plan moving forward. So the plan changes 1,000 times, but we have a battle plan every day when we walk in.
Wild. What time does your day typically start?
So I try to get here between 6:30 and 7 in the morning into the office if I'm in town, and sometimes with entertaining franchisees or potential franchisees or market partners, what have you. Can go till last night went till about 10:30. But it's funny when you enjoy something, like I love solving problems, and that's really what my job is to solve problems. It's the job of everybody in the company, to, define, what the problem is, kind of, game out what the strategy is to fix it, and then putting a series of steps in place to achieve the result. So one of my biggest problems is I oversimplify things, but it's just not that complicated.
Yeah. So, it's interesting, those hours that you're rattling off there. I spend a lot of time with people that are new to the commercial real estate industry, and it's so amazing to me how often I just continue to reiterate the same thing. It's time in the chair, right? Yeah. You got to put time in, and without putting that time in, you're a far cry from being an expert in anything.
Well, the first rule is be there, right? You got to be there, wherever you are, whether it's in a store, in a meeting, in an office. We're trying to figure out who's going to travel to India and meet our new franchisee over there. But somebody's got to be there. If you're there, then you're there to intercept any potential challenges, to voice your opinion on what the solution might be, and maybe control the outcome a little better.
We've had a few brands on that have talked about Dubai being one of the first places they chose to grow internationally. Was it the first for you?
It was.
Why is Dubai a logical choice for you to choose? Because it seems like it's just quite a distance away from where we are, and culturally is a bit different also, right, from the U.S. consumer in general. And maybe I have that wrong.
No, you definitely have it right. I think food sometimes transcends culture. And, look at the United States, right? We've incorporated such culturally diverse foods into what I would say is kind of the American cookbook these days. Sushi's kind of become American. Korean barbecue has become American. Pizza didn't belong to us originally, right? So I think that, that's number one. Number two is the GCC and Asia are gigantic chicken consuming markets. So Take India, for example. A large part of the population considers the cow to be sacred. Chicken is by far the number one consumed protein in the country. We have some of our partners. As a matter of fact, our major vendor who supplies our chicken actually has a presence over there as well. So it'll be easy to build consistency into the product. And we've already done it in the UAE. We have in Dubai 2 stores. As a matter of fact, one of our founders is heading out there next week just to check on the locations and see if we can help them or support them. But it seemed like a kind of a natural migration. So we started. The first one for me was the UAE, but the first Hangry Joes we had in internationally was in Korea, and both of our founders are Korean. So there was that connection there, and then we moved kind of naturally into Japan, where we have contacts, and then to the UAE. But everything it's 6 degrees of separation. So all the people involved, all of our equity partners, which we have quite a few, the founders, they're all connected at high levels inside the restaurant community in the U.S. and some international markets, as well as generally in business. These guys are all restaurant guys. So the connections actually and the relationships kind of breed these business relationships.
So let's go back to location 1. Okay, right. So we're there in Virginia, and what was the layout? Did they open in a parking lot? Was it in a strip mall, an old Burger King?
Yeah, no, it was in a strip mall, and it was a second generation store. And they took it over, and as Derek and Mike are the original founders, they took it over and they did a lot of the work themselves. So they were, pulling wire through the walls, dropping the data terminations from the ceiling, putting up sheetrock, stuff like that. And, it really was we talk about fire in the belly a lot in the company, right? Like you gotta have that oomph and the gusto and the determination, call it whatever you want. When you have a vision, and Derek and Mike are visionaries for sure. You gotta have a vision and you gotta be determined to see it all the way through to the end. Lots of people have good ideas. Not a lot of people have the follow through. And these guys did it and managed to grow it very quickly. And of course they don't go in and hang sheetrock anymore, but they're involved. They're at every opening that we have, deeply involved with the franchisee community within the company.
So they opened in 2020 though, right?
Opened in 2020.
And what time of year in 2020?
I'd have to go back and check the date. I wasn't around at that time. So,
but obviously in the middle of COVID, right? Clearly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so did they like to fry chicken? Is that, where did it come from? Where did the passion?
So they've been restaurateurs for quite a long time. They are actually, they're the founders of Sweet Frog. I'm not sure if you recognize that brand name or not, but
I don't.
It's a frozen yogurt concept, also started here in Virginia. And they built that into 470 stores and sold it. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do next. And I think, traveling around the United States internationally, but especially in the U.S., they started seeing Nashville hot chicken. And they started trying different concepts and thought they could do it better with their culinary expertise and that kind of thing. And in my opinion, it's the best Nashville hot chicken out there on the market. And as a matter of fact, when I first started with the company, first or second day or something like that, I went into the kitchen for the first time. And I realized that they were cutting all the proteins by hand. They were making all the sauces from scratch. they're mixing their spices from scratch in the store. And I mean, it was a fast casual concept with a scratch kitchen. And I come from scratch kitchens and full service dining, and I was absolutely blown away by that. One of the first things I said is, you don't have to be a scratch kitchen. That's, you design your recipes, determine the flavors, and then we'll take it out. We'll have somebody do it for us so we can build efficiency into the business and, control costs a little bit better, have more consistency in the product around the world, that kind of thing.
So they figure out they've got lightning in a bottle because the store takes off right in the middle of COVID.
A new concept in the middle of COVID. That's just nutty to me.
Yeah, I will never forget. We were opening a hotel property with a partner, and our opening was December of 2020. And at the opening, my partner had all the investors there, and he said, "Hey, by the way, we might need to give the keys back on this deal because I have no idea how this is going to perform." And COVID was a wild time, right? Yeah. And, on that project, we were already building a hotel. And so it was just set to open and there was nothing you could do. It was like watching a slow moving train wreck. Yeah. Thank goodness it actually has performed quite well, which is great. But could have definitely gone the other way, right? As it could have for these guys, right?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. It is interesting. There was such a shot in the arm. I feel like COVID advanced the U.S. consumer habits on the food side like maybe a decade, and then just absolutely shoved us into this entire meal delivery world and kind of last mile restaurant delivery. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. It was such a trying time for restaurants, and everybody could see it. The kind of bootleg outdoor dining that they put out. I was working in New York a lot at the time, and all of Manhattan, they were taking over the streets with the tents and the outdoor tables and stuff. And it was just, restaurateurs trying to survive. I mean, that's what it came down to. And it was a scary time in the restaurant business. At the time I was actually in airport restaurants. That's what I was doing, is developing and running airport restaurants. And it was, it was a really terrible thing to be a part of, at least for a while. But you're right. It forced us into the DoorDash and the Uber Eats and, all that stuff.
Yeah. So the brand's surging at the moment. You're knocking on 200 stores by the end of this year. I would imagine you're signing up some pretty good area development franchise agreements with some of these operators. What's the typical franchisee look like for your concept?
So a typical franchisee, many of our franchisees, I should say, I'm not going to say all, but let's say 95% of them are restaurant people. And they come from restaurants. We have a contingent that came in our the area representative group that came from Subway a few years ago. Subway started buying back all their territories. And again, it was, these restaurant folks that were looking for what they were going to do next. And so several of those gentlemen have come over and are equity partners with us and area representatives. And they're developing regions all over the United States. But it's not, they're not just Subway folks. We've got, I'm not a Subway guy, and I came in, and I've worked in full service dining, developed all kinds of different concepts. But, I think most of our area representatives are attracted to the concept initially, and then they get involved and they feel the energy that comes off of our group. Everybody really drinks the Kool-Aid. We really all believe that this is the best thing on the street. And there's, I've tried pretty much every other hot chicken there is out there, and I find it hard to believe that anybody's even within spitting distance of us. Our food's great.
For those ex-Subway people, that's got to be a kind of a fascinating, social experiment, if nothing else. mostly just I think of Subway as a concept, and it just has a long history of not being known to really do great support for its franchisees, and more it's just hands-off operation. I would imagine a lot of those folks come into your system and you show them a little bit of love, and it's kind of like, hey, what's this?
Yeah, I think that's true, and that's actually, people management is really what I do. It's not restaurant management, because I'm not the one cooking in the stores or running it or staying open until 3 o'clock in the morning. Just like I think in any industry, people respond to recognition, and the simple question, how can I help, is not just an olive branch. It's a bridge between the two of you that builds that relationship, and it's all loyalty and trust. And it may sound silly to somebody listening right now, but that really is what the restaurant business is about. It's about heart and soul more than anything else. Following standards and executing the product and the concept, all that stuff's important. But it all starts with people and relationships.
Okay, so you shared a little bit about moving from a scratch kitchen to doing some things, I would imagine more of like a commissary type facility and streamlining some efficiencies. Tell us about some of the other things that you've done to implement some, enhanced operation procedures.
So that's the first and foremost, is our biggest product is chicken, and we're hand cutting chicken in the back. And while that's very stylish and looks cool, it's not sustainable at the rate of growth we have. So we partnered with a major chicken purveyor, who kind of shares our same principles, meaning, the things I just talked about: honesty, loyalty, hard work, all that stuff. And that's number one. And we went through, I want to say, 24 tasting cuttings of chicken before we got the format, the footprint right, so it looks the same as a hand cut piece, the marinade right, the texture of the chicken, the eatability, which is probably not even a word, but that's one of my favorite words. How does it feel in your mouth? Is it chewy? Is it, woody? Is it that kind of stuff? And we really dug into it. And this company that we partnered with just did everything they could to accommodate us. And we actually believe we're like 30 days from rolling it out across the whole company. So it's a gigantic victory for efficiency in the back of house. But it's not just that, right? So the food product is a piece of it, but it's also, we're in the hospitality business. So we have to, everything with the concept contributes to the experience, which is what we want to deliver, not just a meal. What kind of music? That was one of the first things I noticed. Everybody played different music. What kind of music should we be playing in all of our stores, right? What speaks to the brand? Just yesterday, I went to a dessert tasting because we want to put something sweet on the menu, and our whole operations team was there, and we tried 15 or 20 different things, made notes, gave them back to our vendor, and said, hey, go take these notes, put them back together, and come back. We'll do it again in a month. So. But it's also not just the food product. The system, I said I'm a systems or process and structure guy. So I believe that, there's every action we take should have value while we're in the building. And part of that is, making sure that we're following cleaning standards, right? Pulling equipment every night and cleaning behind equipment, cleaning out equipment, checklists for checking temperatures, inventories, production schedules, everything that you can imagine is part of a kitchen system for execution. The expediter is the key to the whole thing. So we've been putting systems in place in the back of house so that they're easy to follow and easy to replicate in a new store. So when we're training somebody, they're learning all the best practices right at the beginning, and when they walk into the store, they're fully functional.
Of the stores that you've got out there, do you have any that have drive-throughs?
I do. Yeah, we have 7 stores with drive-throughs. And then we have, so we've tested a few things like the drive-through. Our cook times have been, probably a little bit long to fully execute at a drive-through effectively anyway. The stores that have them have figured that out. But it's one of the things that's on my list to further evaluate, because I do think, a standalone ground up unit with a drive-through is, could be really beneficial. It could be, a good thing for the concept.
From point of sale to serving the customer food, what is a typical check turn for you?
So try to keep it under 5 minutes, which is probably twice as long as any quick serve or fast casual out there. But we cook check for check. So we don't cook a big batch of fried chicken and put it under a heat warmer and wait for an order. When an order is placed, it rings in, prints in the kitchen. We then take the chicken breast, dredge it, and fry it. So everything's cooked to order, cooked check for check. It makes it fresher. It makes it hotter. It's more enjoyable. Everybody's had that, that burger that comes out of the slide, right? Or the chicken sandwich that comes out of there. It's just not very good.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think yourself and a lot of your peers are, you have a premium product and a premium price. And I think, to me at least, it appears the consumer is willing to wait a little bit more to get that premium product, right?
Yeah. So I think I'm trying to outlaw the word price in the company, because I'm of the opinion that nobody cares about price. What people care about is value. And if they can assign if something they buy, brings them the value they expect it to, or the value that the money that they paid, then it's not it's never going to be an issue. I use the example with all these guys. I rolled out a steakhouse menu in one of my other companies long since. And there's a $90 steak on the menu. And all my staff was saying, there's no way people are going to buy a $90 steak. Our most expensive item is $26. And
which concept was this?
So it's a concept called Copeland's of New Orleans. It's Al Copeland, founder of Popeyes, his full service division. And we rolled out the steakhouse menu, and everybody's complaining. They're like, you're going to mess with our tips. And it was, I think the first 3 months, that steak was the #1 seller on our menu. And because if you're spending $90, all you care about is getting $90 worth of steak out of it. It's got to be worth $90, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the chicken sandwich that we sell needs to be worth the price that we sell it for. I've heard, every company has, hiccups and, guest feedback and stuff like that. And I've heard a lot from the customers. I try to read every guest comment that comes back. I've never heard anybody say we're too expensive. Not one time.
That's an interesting remark right there, right?
Yep.
So clearly the value proposition is dialed for Hangry Joe's, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What was the $90 steak? What are you getting when you order the $90 steak at Copeland's?
It was a center cut, 10-ounce baseball, cut, 10-ounce fillet, that prime fillet. So it was, absolutely just a delectable steak. It's fantastic.
I was going to say, between that and the chicken, my mouth is watering already, right? And we're like a couple hours out from lunchtime here. So here we go. That's good. Oh, good. So, it's chicken business is interesting, especially with some of those times. Can you order your product today on like the meal delivery apps, the DoorDash, is Seamless, Uber Eats?
Of course. Yep. All of those, DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, and I think we have Seamless in a couple of stores, but I don't think it's pervasive yet. Or you can order through our website and pick up. And that's usually, pretty effective. I mean, if you don't want to wait, we are pretty efficient at getting the orders placed. You have to choose the time you're going to pick it up, and we, pretty much always have it ready and hot when the customer arrives.
What are you seeing in the U.S. as a percentage of total sales for kind of that online ordering process?
So right now it's running about 30% across the company. In some markets, it's as high as 60, just depending on where we are and the hours of operation for the stores. So in, I would say downtown areas. So downtown Philly, we have 4 stores, Baltimore, Ellicott City. We have a couple of stores under construction in DC, New York, New Jersey. These downtown areas, we stay open till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's almost entirely, after 11 o'clock, it's almost entirely third-party delivery service.
And are most of those, so if there's 30% chain wide, is most of that being delivered, or is it order pickup?
Most of it is being delivered, but there's a significant piece of pickup. I think that happened during COVID, right? So, people just decided, I think, that even when all the restrictions were lifted, that they could, they were used to getting food and bringing it home. And I think restaurants generally, figured out how to get the food hot, change the packaging a little bit to make sure, the fries don't get soggy, the bun doesn't get soggy, and no heat escape, stuff like that.
It was kind of nice with COVID because I feel like everybody got a nice shot in the arm and had a lot of sales lift. Where you guys were opening new, you may have just experienced, your new norm, right? But a lot of the legacy concept had a big sales lift. What's interesting, though, is, for folks like yourself on the operational side, is it came with learning this entire new methodology of how to deliver to the customer, right? Yeah. And everything attached to that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it, why not do it the hard way? I mean, it builds character. I tell both my daughters that every time they complain that, any adversity is just making you a better person. So, I think one of my favorite terms is emotional fortitude. I think Derek and Mike have this emotional fortitude that, call it a steel spine, understanding at a different level, that they didn't even consider COVID, as far as I know, when they decided they were going to do this. They just said, this seems right. They spent a bunch of time, developing and redeveloping the recipes to get them right. We import spices from Korea to blend in with our Hangry hot spice. That is, I don't know if you tried it, but it's pretty damn hot. It's hot. And there are a lot of actually, Korean elements into that we build into the concept that aren't necessarily super obvious. But, it wasn't an easy thing to do, to pull the pieces together to get Hangry Joe's to what it is today. And they did it at maybe the most difficult time they could have.
What's it like for you as you walk into stores and you're looking at what your operators, your franchisees are doing, and you're looking at the point of sale, and, for maybe you're seeing a menu item that you just know that's one that's bugging you because it's hard to get operational efficiency. It's hard to make a margin on it. How long do you kind of let it simmer before you decide to make a change? I assume once you make a change to a menu item, that has got to be extremely involved, right? Because it's got to go chain wide and everywhere.
That's right. Yeah, everything is you can't do it piecemeal. It's a rollout if you're making a decision for the brand. You know, how long we leave it on there, I think it depends on the product. So there's an item that I really love that's only on maybe 25% of the menus, but I want to make it a permanent item. We call them the Hangry Dogs, and it's a hot dog bun with a chicken tender on it, and then coleslaw topping, and you know, some other toppings if you like. But I think it's just it's perfect late night food, and it just seems like something I would make myself at home if I was up at midnight, you know, and hungry. Maybe after a couple of beers, I don't know.
Yeah, back to those 3 a.m. open hours, right? That's exactly what I was. Yeah, I'm sure you have plenty of late night customers that are just trying to sober back out.
Exactly right. Exactly right. You got to soak up the booze from the bar, and
Yeah.
And we love the late night folks because, you know, it's kind of like, depending on the market, it's kind of like adding in a whole nother day part to the business. And you know, there aren't a lot of places open at 2 a.m. these days.
So you make a pop up to Philly and you're checking on one of your units. What does the COO of Hangry Joe's, what is it that you, David, are looking for? You walk in the door. What's the first thing you're looking at?
Typically, the first thing I look at is the light bulbs. I look up, make sure we don't have any burnout light bulbs. You know, I do have a process and even a checklist when I go into a store to check. But I most of the time I fall back on one of the first books I read on the industry, Broken Window, Broken Restaurant, I think is what it's called. And the premise is that, you know, if you manage the details, if you manage the little things, you know, high dusting, right? Everybody forgets that. A burnt out light bulb, a manager will look at that 100 times over 2 weeks and not change it because it doesn't seem important. It's just a little thing. I'll get to it. But, you know, a kitchen fire gets taken care of right away, no matter what, right?
You hope so.
You hope so, yeah. We haven't had one, but you know, I've seen them happen in the past. Everybody's focused on putting out that kitchen fire right away. You don't have to give direction. You don't have to hold people accountable. Everybody goes and gets, you know, whatever they need to put out the fire. A burnout light bulb, they don't necessarily do that, or a cracked window, or, you know, the grout is dirty in between the tiles and we haven't cleaned it, or, you know, somebody forgot their name tag, right? And those all seem like trivial things, but I have found that if you manage the details, if you manage the little things, the big things kind of take care of themselves.
You know, it's interesting, that appearance thing, because most of the things you just mentioned really are appearance, and back to your selling hospitality, right? You got to have those customers feeling comfortable.
Yeah, it's an experience. I mean, so in my opinion, when a customer walks through the door, we immediately have an unspoken obligation to meet their needs, and they have decided that they're going to give us a try if it's their first time, or they're coming back, you know, because they love the food or what have you. But every component of the concept is a part of the experience, and the cleanliness is absolutely critical. I'm not, you know, like military where I go in and I'm, you know, I'm like, you know, get a toothbrush and scrub the floor. But I have before in my career taken a toothbrush and scrubbed the floor because it needed it. And, you know, it's really about fulfilling the obligation we have to the consumer more than it is about anything else. And, you know, I start at the out front of the store to make sure the signage is right. You know, the windows are clean, things like that. And when I get in, I'm looking for cleaning and sanitation in the front of the house. If there are tables to bus, that's the first thing I do. I go in and I start bussing tables because I want the dining room to look as good as it possibly can look. I'm listening for the music levels and the music content. to make sure that, it fits the brand and it's what we're supposed to be playing. I look at uniforms as I walk through, and I do a full kitchen walk through, all the coolers, freezers, check the equipment, open all the doors, look behind the equipment, check the temperatures of the oil and the fryers. And I try to work Expo for like 30 minutes or an hour while I'm there, so I can see the food quality as it comes out.
I think one of the things I appreciate the most about meeting great operators is they are dialed. To your point, right? There's usually not a question if they're all in. I mean, they are like all the way in.
100%. Both feet. Both
yes.
feet.
And to your point, you have to be, right? I mean, because that's the thing is you get that emergency, your day might start at 6 and before 6:15, you have had 13 emergency phone calls already, right? And you've already put out one crisis fire after the next, right?
That's it. But yeah, I mean, the phone, you wake up to text messages and emails, and I have a rule that I don't check. If I hear it while I'm sleeping, I don't check it, because I gotta get some sleep. I work too hard not to sleep, or your body will shut down eventually if you don't do it. So I gotta keep the volume on because that's my alarm too, but I do not check it. I got a big, Great Dane that sleeps with me every night. So I just snuggle back in with her and go back to sleep.
I always envision operators like yourself, kind of like, the Marines getting dropped off in a war zone, right? And it's full scale pandemonium. And you're like, walk to the left 10 feet and crouch there, and they're still communicating calmly, coolly, and collected, right? Because you have to be.
Yeah. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, none of what I do is super complicated. It's not easy. It's incredibly hard at times, but the complexity is not that tough to get. I mean, especially growing up in the business, I mean, you know all this. It's all like muscle memory, or most of it. Muscle memory and managing people, and there's always new ground to break, which I've been a part of here. It was a kind of a big learning curve for me here to figure out, the dynamic of the company and the different ownership and the board members and, stuff like that. And then we don't have, I mean, Derek is our CEO, but he's not probably a traditional CEO. So there's nobody else really in the organization that I answer to except for those guys. And the board of directors. I've always had a CEO that was present, and so it's a little bit different. But I think I've adapted really well, and they may bring in a CEO at some point. I don't know for sure, but in the meantime, I got to figure out how to move the business forward.
And I get the move, it seems like a lot of the concepts, right, that are in the rapid growth, right about where you are at some point, a lot of them end up selling to a PE firm, right? Or at least the majority of the equity to a PE firm. And I get that, and I understand the move, and I understand then putting in, kind of the, Ivy League trained MBA, right, as in the C-suite. It is interesting, though, because it does seem you always lose at least just a little bit of the charm, right? You lose a little bit of that authenticity. And it's always just one of the more fascinating moves, I think, that I watch with the PE firms.
Yeah, that's, there's no plan to do that right now. But there, at some point, the company will get big enough to where we're considering an IPO or, sale, or like you said, sale of the majority of the shares. But when you institutionalize heart, I don't know how to say it any different than that. Like, this business was built on and runs on heart every single day. When you kind of commercialize that and you take I won't say who the company is, but there's a company that I used to quote reference all the time because they took I said they took the hospitality out of the hospitality business. And, by over engineering the efficiency in the business and that just wasn't any feeling or emotion in it anymore. And there has to be. I mean, there's got to be, like, you got to get mad when there's something to get mad about, and you got to, you got to hurt when there's something to hurt about, and you got to celebrate when you get it right. And we're good at all those things here. So.
And not to say that it happens every time, right? I mean, we build a lot of Dutch Bros here, for example, and it's been interesting. I built, my first unit was like number 94, and now they're just over 1,000. And what's been interesting, at least from me watching their company, is they've replaced, they've had a new CEO come in, a lot of new C-suite, a lot of new executive leadership up and down the ladders. And what's been really fascinating to me is you open a new location and it's still kind of that same high energy broista out there taking your order at these new locations. And it's kind of mind blowing when you watch somebody scale it, right?
Yeah, and that is true operational expertise. So if you can maintain the rhythm of what I think hospitality in the restaurant business is, and still effectively manage the commercial side of it. But in my experience and what I've seen just in my career is private equity wants to get their money out quick, and they don't want to wait, and it's not a long-term investment, so it gets the business gets stripped down, and takes a little bit longer when you're publicly traded, for restaurants in particular, but kind of the same thing happens over time because the returns have to grow every year. The board is not going to accept. You can't submit a budget to make $5 million less this year than you did last year, right? Yeah. There are companies that have walked that razor thin line really well. And all I can say is, those are the people I aspire to, get in an empty bar one night and just have drinks and pick their brain.
Our show is called the Dirt Dog Pod, and a lot of what that is alluding to is just thinking of like a good hunting dog out in the field that's zeroing in on the pheasant or the quail that you're after, right? And so hunting out kind of that next great real estate site. If you were dropped off in a new market with franchisee and you're looking at 5 sites that they're looking at and exploring, should this be the next Hangry Joe's? What is it that you decide, or what would you look at as you're looking at that potential site to determine if that's going to be a good high volume restaurant?
So I have the benefit of having being old enough that it was way before AI and everything else. And I actually had to go and, meet with brokers and realtors and stuff to get data on the sites I was looking at. It took a long time. Today, we use an AI solution that kind of generates all the data. So we look at traffic counts, demographics, population density. We also look at our competitors around, let's say it's a 3-mile radius around the site we're looking at. And we kind of evaluate them based on their sales, which we have an estimate of. And we also use the AI to figure out what kind of loyalty they have. So how many people are going there, once a week or once a month instead of just a one-time visit. And it's all the standard players that are our competitors. You could probably pick them out and say the same names that I would say. Because it's not just hot chicken, it's chicken in general, right? Chick-fil-A is kind of the master of the QSR field right now. But there, we open near Zaxby's and some other concepts that are not hot chicken, but still compete with us. So we look at all the standard data. Some of the other things I look at are, what kind of community activities there are. So in Northern Virginia, there are food festivals all the time, all year long, through the winter. It doesn't matter if it snows. There are food trucks. There's a Korean food festival. There's, the Italian food festival. They're everywhere, and every style of food you can imagine. I'm big on community engagement. Everyone, we are a pretty fast growing business, but we're still a small business. And each one of our franchisees is their own small business. And, the recipe for success for a small business is to be engaged with your community. Some of the things I'm a proponent of are like, be a member of the Chamber of Commerce and go to the meetings, right? Get to know the other business leaders in the community. Some of those folks have been around for 30 years and they can give you insight and advice that is, doesn't cost you a penny, and, could be a deciding factor in how successful you are. So it's not just that. It's, I rolled out, I'm in the process of rolling out a local store marketing plan. This is something I've used for 25 years, adjusted for, the times and for this concept. But, I mentioned earlier, we don't do a lot of marketing at all. We do some digital stuff. There's been a couple of radio spots, terrestrial radio spots that we've done. But that's about it. I mean, we don't spend a lot of money on marketing. We don't advertise. I think when we go in, especially in a new market, when we go in, we have to get to know the people in that market. And that means sweat equity and beating the street, guerrilla marketing, that kind of stuff. Going to, hotels and car dealerships, getting to know the sales managers and concierges, things like that. Relationships. Again, it all comes back to relationships and people.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great perspective that you've offered there. And interesting about the food festivals and thinking about some of the community activities.
Yeah, we do right now. So I just started rolling this out about 2 weeks ago. And to get it in all the stores probably take, 4 or 5, 6 months or something like that to do it and do it right. But I try to focus on things, especially for the franchisees, that aren't too expensive. You could spend all kinds of money on advertising and not really realize, the only true measure for a franchisee, which is more dollars in the bank. But the local stuff is, you're putting your own time into it and you're responsible for the relationships that you build. And, at the end of the day, I think restaurants do what you tell them to do. And with the right people running them and displaying the right behavior, like all the stuff that I've said, like getting out, knowing the other business people in the community, all that translates into sales and profit.
If every single fry cook in the entire system was listening to this podcast right now, what is the one piece of advice you'd give every fry cook in your system?
Use the timers. We have timers for a reason. I mean, it's, we say 6 minutes and 45 seconds, not 7 minutes, not 6 minutes and 30. We've done a lot of work on it. I really love growing people too. I like getting people who don't know that they're talented at this stuff, but I can see it, and elevating them and being hard on them and expecting a lot and holding them accountable. And good people crave structure, and they crave recognition. And there's nothing better than giving somebody something that they don't believe they can do and watching them get it right. Because then it doesn't really matter if I recognize it, because at that point they realize that they're better than they thought, right? Yeah. And I've made an impact on that person's life, which is important.
Okay, so same thing. If you had every single store manager in your system listening to you, what is the one thing you'd tell every store manager today?
Suggestive sell, probably. I think we don't do a lot of that. it's there. We try to get people to buy a combo instead of just a sandwich or what have you. But, there are some concepts that out there that have it really dialed in. They hit it every single time. The nomenclature, the language, the phrasing that they use, being professional but being inviting at the same time. I would try to, go back to probably what I was saying earlier is one of my founding principles, which is be there. That's the rule number one. And be there doesn't just mean physically, although it does mean physically. It means have your mind in the right place and have, your thoughts in the right place. Don't bring, the things that are troubling you, into the business and let them cloud your mind while you're trying to be effective. I probably use work as, and you probably do too, and a lot of people do, as an escape, mentally to get out, shut everything else out, and just focus on the task at hand. And I used to do that with running, but I'm too old to run anymore. So, now it's work. But as an operator, I also get immediate gratification from the things that I do. I used to work with a bunch of developers, and those guys would start working on a deal that wouldn't come through for 3 years. And I'm like, how do you do that? Yeah, you can't I pat myself on the back like 10 times a day when I get something done. I love the immediate gratification of being an operator, and I love to conceive something and put it in place and have it work. That's the best feeling ever.
Yeah. On behalf of some of the developers, I would just contest that, similar to you, it's putting out fires.
Sure.
The fires sometimes rage really hot quickly, but for the most part, they're very slow. And, you have to come up with more of a methodical response on a regular, right?
Yeah.
So, and then it's really fun when we have really stable government environments, like for the last 5 years, as a great example, right? So, just, whether it's a worldwide pandemic or we're taking the interest rates up 5% in 6 months or whatever, right? Who knows? It's just been madness. So anyways, but last one on this series, right? But because we're on a roll, if you had every franchisee sitting here today, and to your point, franchisees are primarily focused on putting more in their checking account, right? At the end of the day, what's your piece of advice for them?
Follow the plan, believe in the plan. It's a path that, from the get-go. As a matter of fact, right before this, I was looking at our pre-opening path that starts from the time that the franchise agreement is signed, and we kind of lay out every step along the way. Literally, it tells you, as soon as you sign your franchise agreement, here are the things that you can do. These are the best things to do right away. Start looking for a location, start looking for a contractor, because their schedules get filled up, especially the good ones, get filled up really quick. And the trades are not as readily available as they always have been. The labor market, we haven't even talked about, but the labor market is completely different than it was before COVID. People don't even think the same way about work anymore. And that's not necessarily a negative. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I just mean it changed the way we perceive, Americans at least, perceive work. I mean, so I have 2 daughters. They're 20 and 12. And when COVID hit, my 20-year-old was 15, and she was just starting to look for a job, a part-time job, while she was in school. And the job she was looking for at the pay scale that she was looking for was entry. It was all entry level, minimum wage, but higher, with a premium for the DC market. but it was still, $9 an hour, $9.50, maybe 10. And the way she perceived her value during and after COVID as a worker was, $10 an hour isn't my time's more valuable than that. So I need to go look for jobs that maybe require a little more skill or a little more training, but they pay more. It wasn't just, now I demand more money for the same work. It was I have to go and grow my skill because that's not enough money. That my time's more valuable. And I think that was a big mindset change for a lot of skilled labor out there, including the trades, including, servers and bartenders and cooks and everybody else.
Yeah. What a wild shift it's been over the last few years, huh?
It's crazy. It's a different world. It's a different world that COVID has launched us into. And, it affects everybody, but the restaurant business really went through some major changes that were not intended or not expected, right?
I've not had the pleasure of being a customer of Hangry Joe's yet. So when I get there, what's the go-to? What's your recommendation on what to order?
Mega Sando combo. Mega Sando, so it's almost the chicken fillet is almost 3 times the size of Chick-fil-A's sandwich. So we serve, it's anywhere from 8 to 8.5 ounces. That's our margin of error. And I think Chick-fil-A does like a 3.5 ounce fillet. It is a lot to eat, but we also have a smaller size Sando but even that's still like 6 ounces of chicken. But I would say there's a couple other things that are guilty pleasures of mine. The loaded mac and cheese is like really incredible. And then we've got another one on there that actually that's been my favorite item because it's a little bit healthier. Chibap. It's a Korean word. It's rice in the bottom of the bowl, and then you can pick your sauce. I use our soy glaze, spicy soy glaze, and it comes with fried chicken. It's 8 ounces of fried chicken on top, and then some greens and some more sauce, a white onion sauce on top. Amazing! It is really, really incredibly good. I'm also working on a non-fried chicken because we think it's in today's health conscious society, we need to have something that's a little healthier. So it's likely going to be a grilled chicken, but we're testing out some oven roasted options, all the same marinades, spices, everything else. But expect to see that probably sometime the end of the summer.
I love it. Well, there you go. So if you haven't been to a Hangry Joe's, get out there and go try the Mega Sando. That's the move.
That's the move.
David, thank you for joining us today on the Dirt Dog Pod.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me.